Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back. It is time now for talking about our creative writing competition. I will hand you over to Sparrow.Alden. It's always fun when Sparrow and I are broadcasting together. It's one of the few times that we have two people from the same state broadcasting together. We are neighbors. Which in Signum terms means we're only separated by about 100 miles or so. Anyway, yeah, no, this is fantastic. Sparrow, so good to have you with us today.
Corey, I am thrilled to be part of Signum Palooza, which may or may not be the official name, but it's always the second most awesome day in October.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So no, it's great to have you here today. And I was so excited. Sparrow was the one who came and suggested having our creative writing competition this year, and so was really happy to see. We did a creative writing contest several years back, but we haven't done it for a little while. That was maybe, I don't know even what that was, 2015 maybe. It was.
I think so.
It was several years ago. It's something that I've always wanted to sort of hope that we could redo at some point. So I was absolutely delighted when Sparrow came forward with this suggestion, and Sparrow, and I think we got some awesome submissions, right?
We got a large number of submissions of all kinds of different works. It is very exciting, and I'm excited to tell you all about it. I can't help. I'm particularly proud of our under 18 writers. Wow. Wait till you hear their stories.
That is fantastic. So we wanted to do a session today in which we not only just, we thought of just like announcing the winners, which is kind of cool, right? Being to be able to announce and to celebrate people. We want to do more than that. We want to do some readings. We want to actually share with you some of the work that people submitted, and I think that's going to be a really fun time. And Sparrow, I know that there are plans, right, for what happens with the winners now.
There are multiple plans. Our wonderful writers who retain copyright have given Signum permission to use their works for promotional purposes. So, number one, we're going to create an EPUB format electronic book full of these great stories to be shared at a future time through the Signum website. And number two, I don't know if our listeners and watchers have heard the phrase yet, Mythgard miscellany. But each of the winning writers and their works have been called to the attention of Dr. Maggie Park, who has plans.
That's right.
Many plans.
That's right. Yes, the Mythgard Miscellany program, which I've mentioned before, but some people might not remember. The Mythgard Miscellany program is designed to be, it's going to be an eclectic kind of broadcast experience where we're hoping to spotlight the work of many, whether it be talks, maybe talks people have given at regional moots that they want to give in a different environment. Maybe it's going to be, written works, videos, all kinds of things, right? Gonna come into the Mythgard Miscellany. So yeah, that's going to be a really fun vehicle for being able to spotlight some of this work that our wonderful writers have produced here. So cool, yeah, absolutely.
I'm very excited for all of this. So may I attempt to share my slideshow and click present? Just give a little test to all of our tech here. All right, do you see a big welcome sign?
See, I do. Did present click?
Present did click. It looks to me. Oh, I know what the problem. Hold on. Good. Look at us solving problems. Aren't we clever?
Oh, the interplay.
Look at us not solving problems. That's great. Hold on for a sec. I'm going to unshare and then reshare because I see what my problem is.
No worries.
There we go.
It was visible, but
it was, yes, but it was not quite. How's that?
That is what I'm talking about right there.
That's what we were looking at, because number one, I want to welcome everyone. Whether you have been part of Signum forever, whether you just stumbled across this broadcast 2 minutes ago, I am so excited to welcome everyone coming into this community and being here, because we are about some amazing things. Oh, Sparrow, give the nice people the handout. Turns out I don't have that button today. So Corey's going to give the nice people the handout because Corey has that button. I'm Sparrow.Alden, and you have found the place where what we really care about is more great stories. I'm broadcasting from traditional Coasabnaki land. In fact, I'm broadcasting from the pantry. Alrighty. As Corey said, it was time for a new fall fiction contest, and I am thrilled with the results. A lot of writers sent their work. A wonderful set of judges decided who made the cut, and every single writer got a set of comments from the judges on their work, what we loved, because that's the most important thing. Know your strengths as a writer and lean on them. So thank you, distinguished judges, including Chris Swank. She's an academician, she's a librarian, she is amazing. Jesse Robinson, the Dean of Students of Signum University. Gabriel Schenk, who's this mysterious madman who lives somewhere in England and can be seen walking through Oxford periodically. Valkyrie.Alden, who is an avid reader whom I found in my kitchen the other day. Scott C. Smith, managing editor at Gateway Media Publications, and Paul, now my people are laughing, and Paul Peterson, a amazing scholar of ghost languages, those languages which might be dead, but are still singing. Our first category was for under 18 writers. I knew we could get something from 7-year-olds that were 3 sentences long, and I was just ready to praise the heck out of everyone, and so give them their own category. These writers, we only got 2 in this category, but both of them did not need their own under 18 category. They are fantastic. Please keep your eye open in the future for works by Alison Zhu and Samuel O. Allgaier. You're going to hear both of those this afternoon. They are teen writers who just keep your eye open for these people. Our next category was poetry. We did not have a line limit, but we did have a prompt of answering the call. And I'm thrilled to announce our winners: Tony Mead with The Sea Maiden, LQD Hall with Oath to Work, Zach J. Payne, Where the Reader Marks the Page, Chelsea Page, who wrote Wake Up Call, Michelle Chandler with Valiant Rose, Moritz Barr with The Silver Fountain, Sarah Yassine with Krakamal, and Erica Flynn with Restricted. Our next category was 500 words of horror. Their prompt was part of something big. Our winners are Jolene Muir with The Novel, Jens Heiber with Souls Dying, Robert Steed, The Hum, S.M. Sloan, The House with Another Room, Sarah Yassine, Working from Home, N.M. Henderson, Alone in a Crowd, Robert Montenegro, Do You Know How Much Pain There Is in the World, E.T. Smith with Little Red Riding Texan, and Jensen Stark with Housed. I am particularly grateful to our judges for reading the horror section because I was afraid and didn't. The next category, 1,000 words of delight, and their prompt was noticing. Jolene Muir wrote The Library, and E.T. Smith, Sleepy Hallows Eve. And finally, the 2,500 words of wonder category, during which your prompt was to use the word erstwhile, had 2 winners, Mark McIntyre with Hunter and E.T. Smith with The Dragon's Greatest Treasure. Congratulations to everyone. These are the winners who will be in the ebook. We don't have time to read them all today, but we have selected ones that sound particularly beautiful. So, it was a dark and stormy night. You worked against the wind. The place was full of shapes and wet, and you hunched up your shoulder against the damp. You saw a light, and you made your way through the door, the creaky door, under the sign that had a picture of a fireplace with shadowed faces gathered around it. It was a dark and stormy night, but inside, finally, the wind couldn't get you. There was someone over there wearing shiny liquid metal, and someone over there wearing rusted chainmail. There were some children. There were some elders. There were all kinds of people dressed very strangely, but there was not music. There was a big hearth. "Welcome to the community hearth," said the woman behind the bar. She had red hair shot through with gray and offered you exactly what you needed to drink. It was hot. It was in a mug. It was your favorite thing. There was a younger woman, clearly her daughter, closing the shutters against the weather, and soon everyone was sealed inside. She looked outside one last time and nodded back to her mother behind the bar, and then went to stoke up the fire. The barwoman said, "My friends, I think we are stuck here for quite a while. We have got to wait out the storm. No matter where you came from, no matter where you're heading, you are welcome right here. There's salty potato bits. There are refreshing beverages, hot and cold. Please, let's make the storm pass faster in a very old way. Let's tell a few stories, sing a few songs. As my grandfather said, if you know a tune or a poem or a bit of Robbie Burns, it does not belong to you. You are its guardian." And so, one by one, people stood and began to tell stories.
Ever since learning to read when I was 3, I've always been enthralled by the magic of books. I could open one and be transported from my boring, ordinary life into a world of wonder. I had grown up traveling to Narnia, and I had studied magic at Hogwarts. I learned about chaos theory while journeying through Jurassic Park. I found my first true love on the moors in Wuthering Heights, sobbing when that love was lost. So it made absolute sense to me to become a librarian. I wanted to spend my life surrounded by books, helping others discover the wonders inside. I found a library that wanted me. It was in a small town, and I was one of the only 3 librarians at that branch, but it was perfect. The library was in an old Victorian house with small collections of books in each of the many rooms, and seemed to embody the magic of the books it held. My colleagues seemed nice, an older grandmotherly type, lady named Judith, and a sprightly woman in her late 30s named Angela. I looked forward to working with them. Soon after the library opened on my first day, a little boy around 10 years old came in. He said his name was Tommy and that he needed a new story. When I asked him what kind of books he liked, He told me that every book he got from the library was just what he needed. He wanted me to give him the next book he needed. While I was trying to figure out what he meant by that, Angela came over, holding a copy of Peter Pan. When she handed him the book, his eyes lit up, and he hurried off to read it. After Tommy left, I asked Angela how she did that. She asked me to join her and Judith in the office. "You have been chosen specially for the work that we do here," Judith said as I sat down. "I appreciate that. Sharing books is my passion," I said. "This library is special," Angela said. "I think anywhere that houses books is special, but this library does have a particular charm about it," I said. "The librarians who work here are the guardians of the story," Judith said. "What a poetic way to put it," I said. "Our job is more than just helping people find books. We care for the very magic that lives in each book," Judith said. "Okay?" I asked, puzzled. "The story is the force that holds the world together," Angela said. "You have the power to see that force in a way that most of the world doesn't," Judith said. "That's why you have been chosen to be a guardian." "I do find that books are magical," I said. "Is that what you mean?" "Yes, but in a more literal way than you think," Judith said. "You see, my dear," Judith said, "without a story, the world will descend into darkness. Each of the books ever written contains a spark of magic. When that magic enters the heart of a reader, they are changed, receiving a tiny bit of wonder. That wonder sparks all of the goodness in humanity. When someone buys coffee for a stranger or rescues an animal, it's because of the wonder in their hearts." "I've always known that books had power, but you're talking about literal magic, aren't you?" I asked. "Yes, dear," Judith said, "and it is our job to make sure that the magic of story continues to grow in the hearts of humanity. Without it, humans can be cruel and destructive." "So we get people to read?" I asked. "We help people find the right books," Angela said, "the ones that will fill their hearts with wonder." "How do we do that?" I asked. "Magic," replied both ladies at once. Angela stood up and walked over to a card catalog that sat in the corner. She pulled out a card and brought it to the table. "Each card tells us about one of our patrons. This is Tommy's card. It's how Angela knew he needed Peter Pan," explained Judith. "Each one is facing the darkness and needs a spark of wonder. We read the cards and determine the perfect book for our patron to read right now. Then we just have to give them the right book." "How do we know it's the right book?" I asked. "Here," Angela said. "Look at Tommy's card. When he came in, his card lit up. It has his name on the top, and underneath it is a description of what he needs." I took the card and read it. "Tommy is losing his sense of wonder. He needs to know that growing up doesn't mean that his adventures have to stop. He needs to read a grand imaginary journey." "Okay," I said, "since Tommy needed a grand journey through imagination, you gave him Peter Pan." "Exactly," Angela said. The library door opened and a girl walked in. She was maybe 13 or 14. I looked at the card catalog and saw a faint light coming from one of the drawers. I opened the drawer and pulled out the glowing card. It read, "Samantha needs to see herself as smart and brave. She's angry about injustice in the world and needs to know it's okay to fight back." I smiled as I thought of A Wrinkle in Time. It was one of my all-time favorites and the story that gave me the push to do things that scare me. I picked it up off a shelf and headed to meet Samantha. When she saw the book, she looked at me doubtfully. "It's just what a smart girl like you needs right now," I said. She blushed, gave me a hopeful smile as she took the book. I was going to enjoy this job.
Zing, zing. Aislinn was sharpening his sword in short, bitter strokes. Each slash made a strident, high-pitched sound. I knew that the day was coming, the day that he would kill me, the king of Corvian. In the centuries of being a king, I'd seen it all, the good days and the bad days, the days of glory and the days of stringency, the days of triumph and the days of loss. But no other day had made my heart ache, almost bleed like now. I stepped in front of the massive mirror and my aged reflection stared at me. My once bright red golden scales were dull and faded. My wings, which used to be a symbol of vigor and eminence, were weather-beaten and covered with scars and wrinkles. I had to admit that I was an old dragon now. Then Aislin's useful face surfaced to my mind. He was the kingdom's most distinguished knight. Broad and hefty, he was a master of swordsmanship, his blade never missing any opponent he targeted. His bravery and victories won him the highest honors and numerous cheers and applause. Slowly, the humility in his eyes morphed into conceit and then greed for power. One evening, I overheard him speaking to one of his warriors. "Soon that crown will belong to me. Those old limbs don't stand a chance against the wrath of my sword." A harsh cackle sliced through the air. A chill raced through me and brought a wrenching sorrow. I couldn't believe those words were from my dear Aislinn. The following days, I thought about taking action before he made any move. I could have thrown him into the dungeon for life, but I didn't. I still couldn't believe that he would actually harm me. But now the shrilling sound of his sword scraping against the rock warned me that I could be wrong. It was a sleepless night for me, probably for him too. The sky outside was pitch dark, clumps of cloud obscuring the moon. The wind swished through the pine branches as if whispering a long-lost story. The next morning, I heard a knock at the door. I was greeted by Aislinn's steel-gray eyes with a savage look in them that registered a readiness to kill, his right hand on the grip of the sword at his waist. Before Aislinn said anything, I suggested in a gentle voice, "Aislinn, it's a beautiful morning. Why don't we go on a walk like we used to?" A mix of confusion and hesitation briefly passed on his face before he replied, "Certainly." We wound our way along a dirt path heading into the forest. An earthy smell, a blend of mud and wet leaves, hung in the mist around us. We passed a cluster of cottonwoods whose tops were almost tangled with each other. At the end of their outstretched branches were scattered rocks, jagged and bulky except for a dove-gray rock, which was flat and smooth. We stopped in front of that rock. I hunched over to run my talon along its moist, cool surface. "Years ago, I found a crying baby boy wrapped in a blanket here. I didn't know what to do. I'd never encountered anything like that. But I couldn't leave him out in the forest, so I brought him to the castle, and I'm glad I made that decision." I peered at Aislinn, whose eyes were fixed on the rock, and added, "Because that boy was you, Aislinn." His breath sounded heavier. "Thank you for your kindness," he said, voice low and tight, his hand still clenched on the sword grip. We strolled forward on the path, now lined with wildflowers and shrubs. Our steps pounded on the leaf-strewn ground like drum beats. The path led us into a clearing, canopies of willow trees encircled an expanse of tall grass. "It was right here where I trained you to become a swordman. You were skinny and short compared to me, a giant dragon, but you had talent. I always believed in you, even when you doubted yourself," I chuckled. "But look at you now. All that training paid off." Aislinn stepped forward, scanning the clearing. For a long moment, he stood rooted as a balmy breeze stirred his russet-colored hair. A spurt of uncertainty flashed in his eyes, despite his effort to settle back to a calm demeanor. We continued on the path, sloping towards a rocky mountaintop. Trees and bushes became scarcer, allowing sunlight to spill in and sending us a pleasant feeling of warmth. We reached a meadow dotted with purple snowbells. I slowed my pace and asked, "Do you remember here? This is where you had your accolade when I declared you a knight and bestowed you the kingdom's sacred sword." Aislinn opened his mouth, but closed it as if there were a lump lodged in his throat. "That was the happiest I've ever seen you. It feels like It feels like yesterday. Time flew." My eyes flashed over to him while he seemed lost in thought. For the rest of the path, we walked in silence until we reached the end, a mossy cliff. I faced Aislinn and broke the silence. "Aislinn, you need to know that I'm willing to give everything I have to you. I know that you've wanted the crown for a long time, and I'm the only obstacle in your way." My voice trembled. I don't want to strain your sword, so I will jump off this cliff. You have my blessings." I stepped to the edge, ready to plunge down the abysmal hollow, when I felt Aislinn's arms wrap around me. "No, your majesty, I don't want you to die." He let the words sink in. "I wouldn't be who I am today if it weren't for you," he choked between words, tears glinting in his eyes. I embraced him in my veined wings. A moment felt like centuries. Then I said, "Let's go home."
Silence. Sudden, stunning silence. After the overwrought cacophony of metal and death moments before, my ears rang with it. It always amazes me how a field of battle can so swiftly grow still and quiet after perhaps hours of horror and conflict. Our cause was just, our Lord noble and valiant, yet somehow victory rang hollow. Any soldier will tell you it so often does. When one said there's a great mound of carnage, a river of gushing gore, no cause seems worth it all. We fought for our homes, our king, our families. I and every other sane man are telling ourselves right now. But there's the one whispering voice in my head saying, so did they. And that voice grows louder. In truth, I do not quite know why I fight. I've served many lords, most as noble as King Arkland, so it be not that. I have no family, no home save the scrap of cloth deemed to be a soldier's tents, and I do not frankly care much for the cold, racked, God-forsaken land that is Hinya. Perhaps it is that I have lived this for so long, I no longer have another reason for life. Without warning, the face of a man I slew just minutes ago rises in my brain. I know that the Lingrandians pillage and slaughter where they go, but some of them surely cannot be that way. And again I wonder, what does their manner dictate how we may retaliate? Sooth, I'm so tired. I scarcely know what I think anymore as I numbly limp over the battle plain toward the camp of our army. My movement pulses fresh blood from a wound I did not know I had, and I drop to my knees sapped of strength. I attempt to call for aid, but my voice is a raspy croak, heard by no one. I sag a little closer to the ground. The thought of rest and dreamless dark is a most welcome thought, strangely, as I drift away. My last thoughts are of a girl I loved so long ago, who I thought loved me in turn, but it was not so. Strange, I say, for I thought that grief long since buried within my soul, perhaps not. Is it not odd, the thoughts of a dying man? I, who have seen strange things beyond count, battled met a monster all my days, should now think of the woman who won and broke my heart. Beauty. But now I feel light, as though mist were about me. No pain and no fear. With my love in her mind, her long hair blowing in the autumn wind, my hand tightens on the sword hilt, and drawing one last lingering breath, all at last subsides into still, warm nearness. As I draw my sword, the mist clears, and there stands my love. Cold, dark eyes, the colour of my blade, and yes, the colour of her armour, the colour of the tip of her spear. Stand, she bids me. We ride. War calls. For whom? For what? Barely audible, I ask. When has that mattered? It has to. Has to. Though I hear the words I speak, she does not. She turns, and I follow.
The house with another room. Everyone knew the house had another room. This was obvious to everyone. If you counted all the windows on the outside and the inside, they never added up. There are always 2 extra outside. And if you turned on all the lights, there were always 2 windows that stayed dark. Most didn't think that strange, probably due to how absolute and well known the strangeness was. John was not like most. He had lived in the house for about a month, his wife Mary and him hoping to make the quaint little house their quaint little home. That extra room bothered him, not just because it was missing, but because it was so unknown. There was something fundamentally wrong about sleeping so close to the unknown. So one day, John decided he was fed up with it. Mary told him to leave well enough alone or to call a professional, but John wouldn't listen. Everyone knew the house had another room, but only he seemed compelled to find it. After several days of knocking on walls and banging hammers, John had found the missing room. Boarded up by drywall and old wallpaper, it was a disturbing mix of deliberately hidden and yet easily found. The door to the room was older than all the others in the house. It had a large brass handle on the left side. Every other door had theirs on the right. John slowly opened the door, or tried to. Years of dust and age had sealed it tight, so the opening was far less ominous and more of a surprise. John poked his head inside, but Mary stayed in the hallway. Both inspected the room, surprised at what they found. Nothing. The room was empty, save for a few layers of dust and cobwebs. 2 windows on the opposite wall were the only source of light. John stepped inside, keeping a hand on the heavy door. He saw nothing of interest or previous use, just old, aged walls painted a dull gray. With nothing left to see, John stepped for the windows, finding the view similarly normal. That was when the door shut. Without John holding it, the heavy door slammed shut on its own. Mary screamed in surprise. John ran back to the door and forced it open, ignoring that this doorknob was also on the left side. As John ran back out, he knew something was wrong. The house, the hallways, the doors, everything was off. The doors were too thin, the hallway too tall, right angles were all wrong. And then he saw Mary. Her changes were perhaps the most subtle. Her nose and eyes were all slightly off-center, nothing major, but a difference of an inch felt like a mile. This was not his wife, and then she spoke. "Who are you? Where's John?" John screamed, but not Mary screamed. Everyone knew the house had another room. No one knew the room had another house.
It's easiest to sleep. I know how dreams enchant the body well beyond the rest we need and take us to fantastic scenes where fairy songs prevail, and heroes blessed might work some wonder on a grateful world, and reap a love that otherwise eludes their waking days, to live where spellcraft twirls their homely hands heroic, magnitudes above their mortal lot. I pray you wake and let the glamour fall. You're needed here and now, though humble monsters may yet quake to see defiance burn along with fear within your eyes, a hero all the same, for good and evil aren't a child's game. Gathered with my win ones near, the hearth fire's warmth embrace me, to leave and away from those dear, forlorn my mind thoughts and lonely be. I have been chosen to go, along with the clarion call, I must answer resolutely so, to stand before and serve all. Lowest of servants I would be, working for my sire and sib. Thanes would not answer to me, but to them I would read not glib. Like Wayland's work I will answer, swift and true to the last. I will boost and follow relancer, till with my sire I partake of repast.
The leaves shivered off their trees as the howl charged through the forest. This is what I get for doing my chores, Little Red Riding Hood thought on her way to the grandmother's house. I should have been lazy and stayed home. The crunching leaves beneath her feet sounded all too much like the sound of something being eaten to her imagination. Hoping it wouldn't be her, she hurried through the forest, dyed red as her cloak by autumn. When the trees gave way to her grandmother's cottage, her relief withered at the sight. The door creaked in the wind, which shook the skeletal tree limbs as if each waved goodbye. Aesop was a liar, she thought. Good children get eaten. That's the moral of this story. Fear warned her to run. Concern for her grandmother compelled Little Red Riding Hood to creep onward through the pumpkin garden. There must be a good reason for her door to be open on a chilly autumn day, she reassured herself, although she could think of none. Nor could she for the claw marks on the door, nor the blood speckling the floorboards inside. Little Red Riding Hood gulped, fearing that her grandmother had been swallowed by some dread beast. The ruffling of fur against wood drew her attention to the kitchen. She tiptoed toward the door while her instincts complained, "Run, run, run." She peeked around the corner to find a wolf atop the counter beside her grandmother. The blood stain in each was only one small part of the bigger scene, but it stole her attention, blurring the rest. Only now did Little Red Riding Hood follow her instinct's advice and scream for all her life was worth. The scream rattled the woodman's swing. The axe clunked off the firewood he had been chopping for his early neighbor when his focus shifted in the direction of the scream, his neighbor's house. The wolf he had seen earlier leapt to mind, spurring the woodsman to sprint. He had left the animal alone because he was a conservationist, but the worst possible outcome of that decision now haunted his thoughts. Fearing he was too late, he barged inside the cottage to follow the trail of blood as fast as a hound. The tragedy in the kitchen halted him in shock. His neighbor stood in an apron covered in blood from skinning the wolf she'd shot. Her granddaughter poked the animal. "What big teeth you have?" "Not much use against your shotgun, though," the grandmother said. "Did you have to kill it?" the woodsman said, relieved they were safe, but saddened the wolf was not. "It tried to kill me," the grandmother said. "It's an endangered species." "I'm one too at my age," said the grandmother. "If we lived in France, I might be dead, but thankfully, this is Texas."
Claci cracur ac vistinum, utan gentu sofina gluchen, ha maltersem nagol stornu vikings, I grujandina uppgvov. Kraker kvava, kra, 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 thesi blodbären, bleva af kvislonom, af tholinom ha spreti, bluit och glat, blendir oss samman, thu och glädjer oss samman. Efter vi frand med, skilli fugelsrod, ansi till kalsens.
The Hum. June 7. Story at the end of Section D. Scientists explore mysterious hum. Save this for my Fortean file. June 10. I think I can hear this hum. It's on the lower edge of audibility. My neighbors, on those rare occasions when I see them, that is, say that they think they can hear it too, but maybe not. It's kind of there, not there. June 11. I can certainly hear it now. Others can too. It's kind of a deep, rumbling bass. Scientists still say they are puzzled. Seismologists report nothing beyond the sound itself that is unusual. Astronomers and climatologists likewise detect nothing out of the ordinary. Whatever is producing this sound must be something big, though. It's being reported across the globe. June 13. The end of days crowd is ramping up. Really, it's not just them. Crowds are gathering at all the usual sites: Stonehenge, Machu Picchu, Sedona. The hum is now loud enough for everyone with hearing to hear, but those with ears. June 15. It's loud. Still no explanation from scientists. Glad I got these noise-canceling headphones. There's a run on them, along with earplugs and other noise reduction products. Prices are rising and stock is diminishing. The crowds at the sacred sites are dispersing. The humming noise is becoming intolerable for many. On the street, the hum has been half-jokingly and so half-seriously dubbed Gabriel's trumpet. Others call it Gaia trap, all bass, no hi-hat. June 21. Can't go out too loud. It's hard to think. Constant throbbing, humming, thrumming. It gets into your head, your heart, and just shakes everything. Electronics are failing like a huge EMP set-off. No explanations. People are in full panic mode. Rumors of all sorts of terrible things. Nothing verified, just the fact of the hum. Animals gone underground, birds falling out of the sky, pets trembling and terrified, whales and dolphins beaching themselves. That reported yesterday before everything failed. June 23. Can't hear anything beyond the hum. Teeth are rattling, houses shaking apart. We don't know what it is or how, but the sky has cracked. Fuchsia light drips through the crack. What few plants are visible, they are rising. Feels like my brain is swelling, pressing, going to burst. June 24. We are ended.
This night was shook by storm and hail, with windy wail the fire hall, and huddled in the darkened room sat in the gloom 2 children small. Their mother to the fire tended, lest it ended, and its heat, the only guard from freezing dying, kept on drying, heating feet. The father beat against the door, above the roar of storm he called, to open and to let him in, so from the winds he would be walled. Children, said he, such a wind has never been in our parts. The horse and ass were witless scared, though else are theirs the stoutest hearts. A fool is he who walks without 'neath heavy cloud and thunder beat, who dares the rain and piercing night. There is no gain in such a feat. Yet dancing on the hills I saw, of this I'm sure, in thunder light, a figure of a little man. I think he danced the storm to spite. They disbelieved his wonder tale, till in the gale the children first thought they heard a weeping far, that stirred their hearts to pity her who wailed into the night in notes as bright as falling rain. The youngest daughter now found words. Have you heard beyond the lane that woman whom her lover seeks? But as she speaks, the voice is swallowed by the winds and thunder roar. Behind the door a silence followed. The mother cups her daughter's cheek. A noise so bleak I also heard. It was the wind that haunts the hills. Though giving chills, it has no words. The storm has scared you, nothing more. And not before it passes by will you hear from man or beast, the very least, a grieving cry. Yet ere another moment passed, there was a vast and trembling call of words unknown to humankind, but in their minds they knew it all. So long have we who from afar by morning star did fall in love, not beheld the shining glow of you below and me above. Since the day where wicked thunder broke asunder all my bones, have I lain in every storm, craving warmth and all alone. Once again the voice did fail, the crashing hail did drown it out. Yet in their hearts they heard it still, and Brother Bill spoke next aloud. I know you heard that call for aid, that wildly bade the heart to hark. I see it on your very face, so let us haste into the dark. Though I am drawn, the father said, to run ahead into the gloom, I must speak reason, dearest son. We'll be undone without the moon. No flame can live in wind so fierce, nor eye can pierce the wall of rain. And seeing not, what can we do, but running to and fro in vain? To this they all had to agree. One could not see without a light. And so they settled down to sleep. In wool of sheep they faced the night. But Bill, he could not rest his head for long. Instead he silently got up and reached the window-sill. For hearing still the words was he. Though now it came into his head what father said of dark and cold, he felt he must set his feet to do what deed his heart him told. But as he went to the door to open, he saw that Woken had his sister, who now got up and came to him and said to him in quiet whisper, Do you then too still hear the voice and make the choice to follow it? For me she also calls away beyond the sway of father's wit. Then let us go ere others wake. His voice did shake, but forth he went into the thunder-beaten night without a light on firmament. The siblings held each other tight to stop the fright and chilling wet that now beyond the sheltered house would even rouse the boldest's fret. For a while they blindly sought in silent thought to reach the hills, for there they felt that they had heard the pleading words that drove them still. With struggle, walking still abreast, they reached a crest and stood a while. They hoped for maybe sound or light to come and guide them on their trial. And there indeed, while standing lost, they heard across the nearest vale a cry again, and in the clouds the moon came shining deadly pale. The words this time that in their soul they heard unfold were weakly made. Oh, is there none who heard my cry beneath the sky and comes to aid? On hearing this, the children called and were enthralled by sudden love. We hear and come to you in need with weary feet and light above. Now seeing further they could run, above them shone the risen moon, and clearly now did guide the way the voice that they would find so soon. It was not long until they beheld in awe the woman lie, upon a hilltop mist enshrouded, 'neath the clouded, warring sky. But when they drew near, the woman spoke. Oh, praise the folk who heeded me. I had despaired of being saved. So long I craved my love to see. But tell me now, have you not chanced on him who danced, the river man, whom on that faithful day when I fell from the sky onto the land did wish to see? They looked in wonder. Down from yonder we have come, the girl replied, but no one did we see amid the nightly glum. Who are you, lady? Bill fell in. You have not been here yesterday. I'm sure we would have noticed you when me and Lucy came to play. On hearing this, a weary smile touched for a while her lonely face, and made her fair to look upon, though pale and wan, revealed her grace. Her tale of sorrow then she told, how there of old were many things that found themselves with beating hearts, the earth, the stars, and mountain springs. I was the water in the air, who lived in fairest clouds and free. He, the water on the ground, was running round from hill to sea. For many ages did I roam in cloudy home the heavens free. I was alone from downlands sundered, only thunder was with me. Yet on a day it came to me to turn and see the world below, who hitherto had only loved the stars above me shine and glow. And there below me I could see a running stream in meadows green, and on its sandy shore there lay a figure gay in waters clean. I called to him, and up he glanced, around him pranced the glinting waves, and on him shone the morning bright. Oh, what delight my call him gave! We spoke then long of water joys, of running noise and running round, and as we laughed among the dew, before we knew, our hearts were bound. From then on did we often speak, and to the creeks I soon felt drawn to be with him, and truly near, my love so dear on every dawn. One day my longing grew so great, I was afraid my heart might burst, that I leapt down onto the plain, that was the rain, the very first. Oft my clouds would need my care, so I was there too often. But when I finished, I would run, and to him from the clouds I flew. Like this we spent a happy time, and made sublime and roaring falls, for there in rivers was his home, and in the foam and spray my halls. But alas, our joy was ended, for offended by my love was thunder, lord now of the sky. He felt that I belonged above. He said to me I must remain, for falling rain did mar the clouds, as all the water drained from them. I broke them when I went about. I heard him, and began to find that he was right. The clouds grew light when I would leave them, though they mended as I tended them by night. I came more rarely then to ground, although I found it hard to bear to be not with the river man, who lonely ran through meadows bare. And even more the thunder asked for me at last to marry him. When I defied him, he grew fierce, and had me pierced with lightning grim. Then I was cast into a cell, and missed the dell, where surely now the river man must sing alone, and have no throne to which to bow. Yet still my clouds did love me more than thunder roar and darkened day, and so my prison's mighty bars began to part and fade away. I leapt again into the rain that gladly came to bear me down, yet thunder was aware of all, and watched my fall beneath his crown. He mustered then a mighty blast of lightning, cast it from his throne, and threw me hard onto the ground. I cried aloud and broke my bones. For many years now I have lain in falling rain upon this hill, and though I ever call his name, my lover came not to me still. The children could not find the strength to speak at length on such a tale, but Lucy said, My father chanced on him who danced from hill to vale. We shall find him, lady fair, and to his care deliver thee. And truly, dancing in a storm, a figure lean they now could see. They called and waved toward the man, and then they ran to bring him near, but long his back was turned to them. It dawned on them that he did not hear. But when their feet were in the stream, he spun with gleaming, hopeful eyes. He sighed with gladness, You are here! Did you then hear my lonely cries? They shook their heads, but signed to him to follow them onto the mound. And when they reached its rolling crest, within his chest his heart beat loud. When the river man beheld the maid, he knelt and took her hand, and all around them water fair came from the air and from the land. Around them formed a water sphere, now swirling here, now bubbling there, and brought them flowers bright and slim, and wove them in the lover's hair. It left the ground, and lo, there is a gentle hiss and glowing light. It drove the bitter storm away, and brought to bay the fearful night. The children now could hear a din begin within their home and house, and soon there stood upon the hill, and panting still their parents roused. In awe they saw the shining ball begin to fall and open now, and from it rose, still hand in hand, the lovers, and began to bow. Long in silence so they stood, no mortal could such silence break, and then the merry river man at last began his head to shake. He burst out laughing heartily, with such a glee as newly weds, and placed a yellow flower crown of golden brown upon their heads. Then joy did overcome them all, as vast and tall as mountain peaks, and when the reeds with laughter shivered, it's the river man who speaks. Have thousand thanks, you children brave, for you did save two poor old wights. Without you I'd have never found upon this mound and in the night my lady dear who could not walk, and only talk to me in dreams, for since she fell I could not hear, she broke my ears, so loud she screamed. But now another we have healed, and soon will seal in holy bond our love with marriage, then to flee from thunder free will be beyond the mighty seas of heaven's field. Though we must yield the waterfalls, it is a little price to pay if I can stay in Mistmaid's halls. A sad farewell the world must take from those who make it elven fair. The children bitterly did weep, they could not keep the wonder there. But now the mother had a thought. Have we not bought a silver fountain? That has water leaping tall, run and fall as from a mountain. You may come and live with us, and give to us your fairest song, to be a joy to all who rest, as our guest for short or long. It cannot be, the lady said, for thunder's threat is all too nigh. If he once learns you gave us quarter, even mortar he will fry. Fear not, the father now declared, for if that he dared, I know the way to catch him with a lightning rod. The wily sod shall be my prey. At last their final doubts were lifted. They were gifted with the well, and held their wedding soon thereafter, where rain like laughter shining fell. Thunder tried indeed to cast a lightning blast on all the guests, but then he really was encaged and put with rage inside a chest. The lover's song could still be heard in singing birds and falling rain, but most of all in fountain wells that mirror fells on hill or plain.
As I serenely float beneath the lunar-laced waves, oxygen bubbles rise above me and echo throughout damp caves. I wiggle my toes and barely move as the water washes over me, suspended with a quiet freedom of a dreamless eternity. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow, I shall lie forever wondering if here is where I will stay. A simple reprieve from the cluttered chaos of a messy life, rumination consumes me, and my heart beats steadily with strife. The sky, littered with cotton candy clouds, subtly fades from a cerulean blue to a star-embellished night belonging to a darker shaded hue. It is then that I begin to sink deep into the expanse of my mind, and the pressure of the water's anxiety pushing on my chest is unkind. There are no more bubbles eclipsed by the moon in front of my eyes. I try to exhale, to bring more to life, and all that comes out are pitiful sighs, as an unrequited melancholy seeps into my pruned skin. Regret poignantly pricks at me as I remember my sin. A rapidly growing ringing harshly dances in my ear, an unsettling sound from nowhere that I find quite queer without the willpower to ignore it, and a conscious thought. I eagerly pick up the phone to stop what I had sought. Hello, I ask, who is there? A greeting of desperation that I cannot bear. On the other end is muted silence that fills me with dread. And it is then that I remember I am now dead.
The sun would die today. Elmore had both the means and the belief to have fled with the masses, yet he had seen the danger first, and so he would witness its arrival. Through the scope, the first star had winked out, and then another. He published his findings, done the speaking circuit, as disbelief turned to panic preparation to depart. His popularity had drained his fleeting light. The unholy power approached. Only purest speculation guessed at its origins, but the path of each extinguished stellar pinpoint led unmistakably to now, Sol's dying day. How could a shadow appear behind a sun? The inverse penumbra darkened, somehow casting its ominous cape forward, dimming the bright noon of day. He would not catch a glimpse of this celestial beach in its approach. He hoped to see it after, as it left. Soul struggled weakly, obscured behind the darkening cloud as a candle descending a murky pit, the final gleam 8 minutes past death. Then all was black, save other stars yet unharmed, observing the demise of their brother. The hungry shadow's journey veiled an inky silhouette against the mourners, an enormous smudge stalking its next prey. Elmore waited for the cold.
The dragon's greatest treasure. Bayo hated finding gold. It meant scroll work, as did dams without permits. Discovering a gold-filled cave flooded by an unauthorized river dam made Bayo want to return to bed. That would be the obvious choice, if not for his orders. Find out why the river has run dry, the king said. It'll be easy. Everything always seemed easier to the boss that didn't have to do it. That's the solution, then, Bayo said. Investigate enough to file a report that will pass the trouble on to someone else. He knew in his heart it would never work, but the dream kept Bayo motivated. Beyond the dam hoarding the kingdom's water, beavers floated in the lake created by their labors, indifferent to the gold shimmering below. Any other day, it would tantalize Bayo with hopes of an early retirement, but after a summer-long drought, the water seemed more precious by far. Past the cave's arching gateway, the lake bed piled into a treasure mountain that poked above the lake surface to form an island. Tucked under a blanket of coins slept a creature armored in glittering scales that camouflaged it with the gold and jewels. Whatever it was, Bayo had never seen its like. It was a hassle, he decided after due consideration. No one would believe his report if he claimed to have found a new species. Bayo waded across the river for a closer view in hopes it would prove to be a well-documented bat. The stagnant air tickled his nose with ash and sulfur, which grew thicker near the isle. He sneezed upon reaching its shores, where he knelt to examine the creature. It stirred at the noise, scales shimmering in the light. Its serpentine neck and tail curled and its bat-like wings stretched, inspiring Bayo with the ideal name to use in his report. Bat snake. Bayo smiled, nodding to himself in approval of his own taste in names. Anyone who heard bat snake could no doubt imagine precisely what the creature looked like, sight unseen. It had none of that nonsense in the old Latin of giants. The bat snake yawned, revealing all too sharp teeth as if to suggest an amendment to the name. Wonderful, Mom and Dad brought breakfast. Bayo took the unexpected speech in stride. He retreated while glancing about the cave. Parents implied this was a child, which implied bigger bat snakes. Those Bayo did not want to meet. I haven't seen your parents, young sir. It never hurt to be polite around those with sharp objects. Bayo had learned that lesson working with knights and felt it would prove applicable to the sharp-toothed as well. While he did not fear the dog-sized reptile, he did not relish smacking anything small around or its teeth nibbling him. The bat snake flickered its tail against the coins after looking deeper within the shadowed cave. Balderdash! Mom couldn't have brought you for breakfast then. She always reminds me that good little dragons don't eat talking creatures. Bayo pondered the new word, dragon. It was no bat snake, to be sure, offering no obvious clues about the creature, such as how to avoid getting attacked. Not wanting to hurt a youngling, Bayo tried to puzzle out any meaning that might get him invited to breakfast instead of for breakfast. The closest word to dragon that Bayo could recall was drake, which everyone at court knew was a male duck from their many hunts. Bayo squinted at the creature, which peered back, shifting its head from side to side for a full gander. The dragon did not seem to be a species of duck, but Bayo was hardly a fowler. He did know that drake derived from the word for duck combined with the word for ruler to imply duck king, That made sense given the dragon's attitude. It was royalty. It didn't explain the word's use of G instead of K, though. Before he ruled out the connection, childhood lessons gave Bayo evidence from memories of the monks mentioning a law among the Germanic tribes that had migrated to the kingdom. Words with the letter K could change it to G in their cognates in related languages. As such, from what Bayo deduced, dragon could feasibly be derived from drake if the words were Germanic. Since the Saxons at court called the ducks drakes in their own language, it all came together neatly. Dragons were a type of duck. The extra N at the end remained unexplained, but languages were weird, always changing with whatever was in style with the populace. The old monks would no doubt be proud of Bayo's etymological investigation, and to think they claimed he never paid attention. The environmental evidence supported the linguistics. The dragons lived by water just like ducks. They're well-suited duck kings as well. Therefore, the dragon was featherless duck royalty. Convinced by his reasoning, Bayo acted on it. I apologize for not introducing myself. I am Bayo, son of Hunig. From the name dragon, I presume you must be a prince of the ducks, Bayo said, hoping to impress the dragon with his erudition. The dragon growled and scraped its claws across the coins. A duck? The only quack here is you. I am Pyrrhic of the Buckwormingtons. If my parents were awake, you'd answer for your insult. Lucky for you, my parents told me I was too young to bite people without permission. Bayo sighed. Those monks didn't have a clue about what they were talking about after all. Too late, he discovered a little knowledge could be a dangerous thing when it provided the conviction to do something stupid with confidence. If I may inquire, what is a dragon exactly? He asked, fishing for information that might undo the damage. The term's not descriptive. Despite his size, Pyrrhic's diamond eyes seemed to answer. You are food to whatever it looked upon. That caused Bayo a little discomfort. He had served nobles for years. A human is in no place to criticize what we call ourselves, Pyrrhic said. What is a who, anyway? Human derives from the word signifying of the earth, Bayo said. Pyrrhic nodded. So humans regard humans as dirt. You are more self-aware than Dad thought. Bayo wrinkled his nose out of annoyance and from the sulphurous smell as the dragon scampered closer. If Mom and Dad didn't bring you here, Pyrrhic said, you must be here to steal. Don't think you can fool me because I'm young. I will notice if you pilfer a single piece. Pyrrhic rose onto his hind legs to puff out his scales. I can count into the tens and the hundreds and the thousands even. Bayo pulled out his pockets to prove each was empty. I didn't come to steal. I was investigated why the river ran dry. The beavers did it, not I, said Pyrrhic. His tone shifted into monotone as if reciting from a scroll. If I happen to keep rescuing beavers from the drought until their homes expanded to create the pool, it is not my fault. I didn't do it so that I could have a pool. I did it to save their lives. Expecting reason wouldn't dissuade him, Bayo employed the rhetorical equivalent of the cavalry. Did you ask your parents for approval? Pyrrhic laid a claw over his scaled underbelly. What an ungrateful child I would be if I woke my parents up early from hibernating. They always say the real treasure is a good night's rest. It had the air of a rehearsed excuse made for his parents, Bayo thought. Based on his own experience, he expected the river problem would be solved to the kingdom's satisfaction the moment the parents woke. Bayo merely needed to skedaddle before then if he wanted it resolved by his own surviving. What a filial child you are, he said to be diplomatic. Having been bitten by a teething toddler, Bayo did not relish a repeat with a carnivore. Because I also do not wish to disturb your parents, I will excuse myself. I apologize for interrupting your nap. Pyrrhic watched Bayo with the suspicion of one who knows they're getting away with something too easily. By the way, why are you investigating the river? The king ordered me to. said Bayo, seeing no reason to lie. He had been longing to vent about the hassle he had been put through. Dad told me about all kings, Pyrrhic said. They steal from dragons. He inhaled sharply, eyes growing wide, pupils narrowing into knives. Your king wants to steal my pool. A furnace glow within the dragon's throat illuminated his teeth. With every breath, the evidence mounted against the hypothesis that a dragon was cognate to a duck. On sight of the peculiar glow, Bayo's first instinct was curiosity about what could cause it, but fear, inspired beyond memory, suggested Bayo dive into the lake. He splashed into the water a second before Pyrrhic disproved the duck thesis with his fire breath. After the gust of flame swept harmlessly past, Bayo came up for air. The dragon pounced atop him with puppyish enthusiasm, pinning Bayo in the shallows. Smoke trailed between Pyrrhic's teeth, and embers fluttered on its sweltering breath. Yet its skinny neck struck Bayo as easy to strangle. That seemed a bit rude, though. Giving diplomacy another chance, he said, I promise I wasn't sent to take your pool. The dragon patted his claws against Bayo. Hold still, and I shall find out the truth. Draconian law has a fire test. If you burn, you're guilty. While strangling the dragon seemed less impolite by the second, Bayo called to mind everything Pyrrhic had seemed pleased about to concoct a final try at peace. The king sent me for something far more valuable than gold or even a pool. When Pyrrhic held his breath, Bayo continued, I was sent on a quest to discover the secret of a good night's rest. We're tired almost unto death from work in my kingdom. From what you've said, I've realized only dragons have the knowledge to save us from our affliction. The dragon's mouth dimmed. Maybe humans are wiser than Dad says. The dragon hopped off Bayo. I'm too nice, he said seconds after his attempt to burn Bayo to bacon. Just as I helped beavers, I will help you. The secret my mom taught me for falling asleep is to count coins. The dragon tapped the treasure. Except you don't have any. No wonder you can't sleep. Although freed, Bayo played along to create a better opening to escape. As Pyrrhic stared at him with the eyes of a teacher looking for faults and a beast choosing which body part to eat first, Bayo followed his instructions. 1 penning, 2 pennings, 3 pennings, 4. The dragon's snore interrupted Bayo, who seized the chance to float towards the dam. 5 pennings, 6 pennings. He kept on and on. Puffs of smoke billowed from the dragon's nostrils in time with the counting until Bayo stopped when he reached the dam. The erstwhile sleeping Pyrrhic snapped his head up. And to think I was kind to you. The dragon leapt into the air, wings unfurled, jaws open and glowing. Bayo clambered over the dam as fire wreathed to the logs and lake. The water sizzled and steamed. The wood cracked and splintered. Through the breaches, the pool spilled into the parched riverbed where Bayo landed. He caught sight of Pyrrhic circling for a second shot, but the buckling dam alone sent him scurrying. The galloping water that pursued him would bring joy to many, just not to Bayo. It gobbled him faster than any dragon. The current might as well have been the coil of a sea monster from how it smacked Bayo across the river bottom. Sheer annoyance buoyed Bayo's strength. With every stroke, he beat the water into submission to reach the surface. As fresh air swelled Bayo's lungs, a thunderous voice filled his ears. Pyrrhic, what is that racket? It wasn't me, Mom, Pyrrhic said, swerving back to the cave. It was the beavers, honest. Even now, Bayo's heart twinged with pity for Pyrrhic over the scolding he was about to receive. That sympathy grew less by the mile as the water carried Bayo downstream. The sun's glare added injury to insult, as if angry Bayo had brought relief to the drought-stricken kingdom. By the time the capital came into view, Bayo had been thoroughly sunburnt. While an improvement over being fire-burnt, he remained grumpy about it. Soggy and aching after clinging to a log for days, Bayo floundered onto the docks, then slumped to the castle to submit his report. When the king inquired what had caused the river to run dry, Bayo was too tired to say any more than ducks and beavers before retiring to his home. The festivities packing the streets to celebrate the river's return mollified his spirits, if not his aches. Only those who had supported sacrificing someone to the river remained distressed. Baal alleviated his own stress with dry clothes, once mundane from daily exposure, now a marvel. The court bards had often dazzled with stories of extraordinary wonders, but all the ordinary items around Baal now became wondrous after being absent. It was no meat hall, but even his humdrum house tamed the environment until it became wonderfully boring. As Baal settled into bed, wishing he could hibernate, the goose feather pillows and sheep-soft blankets lent their support to the dragon's proverb. The real treasure was a good night's rest.
It was a dark and stormy night indeed. You listened to stories, you listened to songs, you drank salty potato bits, and one by one all your eyes closed as you leaned against a wall or slouched in a chair or lay on a bench. And just as suddenly as it had begun, the storm was ended and the silence rang. One at a time, you left the community hearth, knowing that when you opened the door, you'd go back to the right place, but you didn't want to go to someone else's right place. You'd be back. Everyone's welcome at the community hearth. We are almost out of time, and so I missed 3 of our readings, my friends. But I want to make sure to thank you, writers. We had dozens and dozens of submissions. I was so happy to read every bit of it. And thank you to the judges. Yay! Thank you to my wonderful readers, Valkyrie, Grace, and Daric.Alden. I owe you salty potato bits and onion burgers for dinner. And especially thank you to the Signum supporters, all of you who are here to be part of our community. I don't think I can express how much you mean to all of us at Signum University. All righty. I am hoping that Corey will prompt me with a few questions because I don't know how much everyone knows. But first, download that handout. The handout has links. Please download the handout. The Community Hearth is one of the Mythgard forums that you can reach from the main Signum University page. Included in the Community Hearth is a creative writing corner, including asynchronous peer review. We have conversations about NaNoWriMo. We post our writing, and you can say if you want kid gloves because this is the first thing you've ever released into the wild, or casual response, or Macduff level of laying on with editory critique. I made you giggle. I made you giggle. WriterSpace at Mythgard happens on the weekends on the Twitch channel. You can get that schedule on the handout. Did I mention downloading the handout? WriterSpace is when you tune in and I say, I know you can do it. And so we set the timer and we work alone on our own projects, but in really good company. And Corey, would you like to ask a well-placed question?
I would like to place a well-placed question because I was thinking, as I have been watching this creative writing community that you have been helping to foster, and to see people, coming and sort of taking encouragement from exactly.
I wait and I cheer for people.
Sparrow, as a little side note, I should mention, I actually I talked about you and your permission wand there during the Mythgard Academy, and I was actually saying that I wished that I could bring you back to meet Tolkien in 1960 and wave your permission wand to him. So in the context of Myths Transformed, I was saying he needed permission to like do his own thing and leave modern
Yes, he
astronomy
did.
behind. But anyway,
Yes, he did.
that's enough. So anyways, I just want to let you know I was thinking about you and your permission wand. Anyway, I've been so appreciating and loving to see the way that our creative writing community has been sort of growing organically and in this sort of very personable way from within the community Hearth and from these other places where you're bringing people together. It's been really exciting. So it seemed to me that it would be a really great thing if we could somehow do more of this kind of bringing of people together, right?
Corey, wait, I have an idea. Hold on, I promised there would be fanfare. Okay, now there's fanfare. Here's the hoopla. All right, very good. And there's an idea in its baby steps. Name isn't even settled on.
Yeah.
But we're hoping in January. Did you notice which ones were by our teen writers? Oh my goodness, the number 2 and number 3 story. I want to encourage our young writers by making a place for them through the Signum Academy. And we will figure out what that means. There will be so many announcements with even more fanfare. Oh no, hoopla, this one's hoopla.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, this is an idea, as you say, in its baby stages. You know, we're just beginning to work on this, but we would really love to have an ongoing creative writing club that students of different ages could come together and get encouragement and work on their stories and develop things. We're working on this and so I should probably mention that in the Signum world, when we say we're only just starting and it's in its baby stages, that means it might be a couple months before it gets implemented. So you'll notice how in like the same sentence, Sparrow said, we're just starting to think about this, and then said, we're probably going to start in January, right? That's pretty much the plan. That's
right.
That's kind of how we roll at Signum. So, but yeah, this is something that we've been wanting to do for a long time, and we really think that the opportunity has come, the time has come for us to be able to do more with kids programs. Yeah, Sparrow, go ahead.
I want to point out that on the handout, did I mention downloading the handout? On the handout is my Signum email. So people who have questions about this, please write to me. I will be so excited to meet our young writers, in addition to our growing writing community of all writers. And November is coming. That means National Novel Writing Month. There'll be support in the community Hearth for people doing NaNoWriMo. And there will, thank you, Corey, there's going to be a very informal, just check-in support, Bandersnatch style group.
Yeah.
NaNoWriMo support. If you are curious, if you're already committed, then write to me. We're going to just meet once a week. But you know what, Corey? You don't have time to do 50,000 words in 1 month. You personally, I know you personally, you don't have the time, but you know what you might do? On that handout is a link to, number 1, to befriend Mythgard, which is the name of a user on the NaNoWriMo website. That's how all the Mythgard writers will find each other, friends of Mythgard. Right. And everyone can contribute to our collaborative story. The Horde is a concept created by Corey a couple of NaNoWriMos ago. We're at something like 14,000 words and growing. It is this great young people's novel, and there's time travel, there's a loyal dog. What else do you need? And there's a Horde.
Exactly.
H-O-A-R-D. Let's be clear. This is not a horror piece. Okay.
That's right.
So
Yeah. No, this came from a conversation I had with Sparrow a couple years back, where I once just sort of casually said to her, like, oh, I've always wanted to do NaNoWriMo. And of course, being Sparrow, she was like, you should. Like, so, she was all wanting to facilitate my being able to do it. And I'm like, okay, but I can't. Like, I actually can't. So we decided a way in which I could vicariously participate in NaNoWriMo. And that is, so I came up with a concept for, like, if I did have the time, here's the novel I would write. And so I did, like, the story outline. I think I texted to you the story outline, if I recall. And so that, working with that story, we have a collaborative novel that we're working on together to sort of make my my spontaneous, vicarious NaNoWriMo vision a reality. So that's really cool.
And by together, Corey means there are at least half a dozen writers who have contributed a little bit, a lot, organizationally, or like throwing in one great metaphor and writing away. So please, folks, on the handout, right? Download the handout, click the links. Please participate with us at any level that feels good. One of my jobs. Oh, Corey, would you just cover your ears and say la 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 quietly? One of my dreams, folks, is to nourish and nurture the writing community at Signum University. There are such amazing things that we can do together. Why is that? Because we are about more great stories. We love reading them, we love writing them, and then we read each other's. So life is good. What else can I tell you about, Corey, before you go on to your next podcast?
Well, I think that's good. What's coming up next is our trivia competition, our annual trivia contest. We're going to do straight up old style Lord of the Rings trivia right now. So that's going to happen in this next half hour. We're going to take a very short break, and I'm going to reconfigure my screen, and then we'll be back on the Twitch channel. So those who are with us in GoToWebinar, please do feel free to join us at twitch.tv/SignumU for our next segment. Thank you, Sparrow, so much. Thank you. I am so glad that you re-energized our fiction contest. I hope this is something that we can do regularly. And again, so glad that you have taken the initiative, and you've been quietly doing this for years now, building and encouraging our writing community. And I think that that's just a wonderful thing. And I hope that lots more people will begin to take advantage of this opportunity to, whether you're an experienced writer who would love for some extra feedback, whether you're sort of new to this and looking for to really find a community for the first time, whether you're somebody like me who is not a creative writer but kind of in some odd moments kind of imagines what it would be like to be one. All such people are welcome to contribute to our and Sparrow will wave her permission wand and give you the permission to do that.
That's why I have the one. Thank you so much, Corey.
No problem. Thank you, Sparrow. See everybody again very soon.